Good morning and welcome to Professional Insights, brought to you by the National Referral Network. This is where we share professional insights from all kinds of professional perspectives for the benefit of all of you. So this morning we have a kind of a very special guest who's written a book about something I think is really, really important. Before we bring him on, before we get to this morning, please hit that like and subscribe button so you can get all of our content every single time we produce it. We're really excited to have you here. So without further ado, let's bring on our guest. Good morning, sir.
Hey, Mike.
Our guest this morning is Walter Clarke. Walter is the author of a new book called 401 Kid. I'm excited to talk to you because this is a book that teaches parents about how to teach their kids about money. Oh my God, is this something that's needed? We've heard for decades from professionals, everybody at every economic level, that people just don't learn about money. There's a shocking amount of financial illiteracy out there. So I'm really excited to talk about this. So let's begin at the beginning. Why did you write this book?
You know, the catalyst was I was at an event with some business people, and they were talking about their kids, and their kids had just graduated from college, and they were asking me about when to teach their kids about money, and this one particular gentleman, it just shocked me because he said, I don't want my kid to know how affluent we are, because I don't want him to be entitled. And I just realized, I walked away from that. He asked me what was a great book that he could read, and one of my favorites is a book called The Wealthy Gardener by John Savorik. So I recommended that, and just really walked away from, boy, if it's happening at this level of the wealth spectrum, and this family is very wealthy, man, there's just a massive void. And it's something that I've thought about for a long time, and that was really the catalyst.
Okay. And so, we've seen this for years in our financial advisory practice, where, again, there's a large amount of illiteracy. And I think in part, we see this a lot where parents don't want to talk to their kids about money because they think it's going to somehow, taint them in their lives or whatever. What is, besides what you just mentioned, what are some of the bigger reasons why parents don't start teaching their kids about money?
So I think the biggest miss is they don't feel the need. So their kids don't have money, and so therefore, why teach them about something that isn't a particular need? And so what happens with that, and the reason that it's a problem, and the premise in my book, is you've got to teach kids early. You have to establish a foundation for what money really is, and how it exists, and how to get it, and really all those characteristics with it. And so, and if you don't, and you say, okay, we're going to delay that until they're teenagers, or they have their first job out of college. What happens is the internet and social media will influence financial behaviors in a way that are very destructive. And so if you don't get in front of it, somebody else will. And so really the wake up call here is what happens when other people dictate, image, behavior, money, prestige, all these things. And it's an epidemic in our society around self-esteem and social media, which portrays my life's wonderful, yours sucks. And so the money conversation really is just the conversation around how to build healthy habits in our kids. And if we don't do it early, somebody else is going to do it.
So it's almost, you mentioned the images that we're bombarded with. They are everywhere, and a lot of those images seem to be defining for us what wealth and affluence really is, in terms of really material possessions primarily. How do these images influence kids? And if kids are not, as you say, taught about this early on, how does this become destructive?
Well, I mean, you think about the newest and the latest, whether your adolescents, or whether it's teenage boys or teenage girls, and you look at the drive to be cool.
Right.
And one of the big things, one of the big catalysts in the book, and I write about it initially, I was walking on the beach, and there was a family of kids, and they were various ages, and they were all reading a book in depth, and I stopped and I talked to the father and I said, man, this is really amazing because this is a different experience. And he said something very profound. And he said, you got to get in front of all the what he called the thorny discussions with your kids. So he dealt with money, he dealt with boys and girls, which i.e. sex and
Right.
physical contact, and then he dealt with social media and phones and all that before they wanted those things.
Mhm.
And so he instilled this value system in his kids before it was an issue. And therefore, when the world came about and tried to influence his kids, it was much easier for him to bring them towards the center, bring them back to their moral compass versus trying to do it sort of after the fact. And so I found that to be very significant. And it's one of the reasons the earlier you teach people foundational aspects of money and self-esteem and learning and value, it forms a bedrock of a foundation of a person,
Mhm.
that it's easier to teach. It was like language or music. When you learn language and music, before the age of 5, your mind is very pliable in the way that it's gonna assimilate. And so um, it's just fundamental in the way that we learn, early. But if you don't, somebody else is going to teach your kids these things. And
So
so
yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, and so whether you have money or you don't have money, that's not the issue. So whether you're a family that's struggling, that's lower middle class, you're upper middle class, you're wealthy, it's the same dynamic. And we just really need to change the narrative in today's youth to talk about what money is, how it's created, what it does, and have a conversation about that.
Okay, so you're advocating starting very, very early, which I think is interesting and also very, very on point. But how can parents approach this if they themselves are pretty much financially illiterate? They're making bad decisions. I mean, we've met people in our practice who make, significant amounts of money. They make a great living, but they're still up against it financially because they're consuming more than, consumption is more than what they make. How do you approach how do we approach that where the parents themselves are pretty much financially illiterate and they don't know what to teach?
So let's use weight loss as an example. And so anytime you want to do something, you want to get physically fit, you want to lose weight, there's an abundance of material available on the internet and books and materials about how to do that. You just have to have a willingness and a dedication and a commitment to doing it. So there's never been a better time where there's open educational architecture in our society, whether it's Tony Robbins or Grant Cardone or Gary Vee or Jordan Peter. I mean, there's an absolute abundance. You have to be willing. And so the premise around the book is, if you want to really learn how to do something, teach it to somebody else. And so the whole premise is the parents got to get with the kids and embark on a journey of financial responsibility, literacy, education. I mean, go to a real estate event, go to a shareholder meeting. Just immerse yourself in the activity, and you learn and do it with your kid. I mean, there's tons of seminars, there's a workshop, there's online, there's a ton of stuff that's free, and it is just not difficult. It's a willingness. It's a willingness to, do I want to instill these financial habits on my children? Do I want them to be like me, or do I want to be better? I mean, so there's all these interesting dynamics of a conversation that parent and kid can have.
So how do parents know? I mean, with so much information out there, and it is a blizzard of noise out there, how do you know if you don't know anything, you're trying to learn about finance, how do you know whether you're getting good information, especially when a lot of the more popular commentators occasionally, at least in our opinion, say stuff that is just kind of not true? How do you know if you're getting good information?
It's like anything else. It's a learning journey. It's like if you want to learn how to play tennis, or you want to lose weight, or you want to go to the gym, there's certain things that are going to work for you and not work for you. It's really just about getting started and doing something. And so the book is really kind of a framework
Right.
for how to get there and how to learn basics of investing. Really the key, that one of the first key things is you got to teach your kids how to learn. Why do you want to learn? Why do you want to learn how to learn? Because learning creates value, and then value creates money's just a store of value. And so,
Mhm.
the book lays out kind of a path, and then from there, we offer a lot of resources for educational, programs, whether it's, financial markets, or it's real estate, or it's, it's other things, but it's really just about getting moving and being consistent with that, and then learning.
Okay, so let's debunk a myth here for a second, because I think one of the most largely held myths is that if people are successful or affluent or wealthy or whatever, it's because they had some advantage that you didn't have. Okay, that's largely a myth, isn't it?
Say that again.
I said the myth is that if someone is affluent or wealthy or what have you, and you're not, it's because they had some opportunity or advantage that you didn't have. That's pretty much a myth, isn't it?
I don't know about that. I mean, is it luck or skill? The one thing, so I've taught a class to families that come into sudden wealth for 25 years. I've taught at Berkeley and UCLA and universities all over the country. The one common theme, and I think this is something that just absolutely 100% is not taught in schools, or it's educating our kids, is the difference between a wage earner, okay, that's somebody that's trading time for money, and an owner income. So I'd say 99% of the people that came to my class had some kind of ownership in a business. And so is that luck or skill? Kind of don't know. But if we were to educate our youth, that there's two very distinct kinds of and very early, where you're just trading one for one. That's time for money. That's wage income. You can get comfortable doing that very slowly. There's a book written, Millionaire Next Door.
Right.
But real wealth comes from owning something. And you don't have to be a founder. You just need to have ownership. Look how many millionaires are at Facebook and Nvidia and
Yeah.
all the publicly traded companies, because their employees got ownership.
Right.
And so that's a very fundamental thing that we need to teach our kids in terms of how to build wealth.
And isn't it true that a lot of it is just understanding how much lifestyle is enough for you, especially if you're making enough money where you can afford the kind of lifestyle you want? How much lifestyle is enough for you, and what does that cost? In other words, how much is really enough? And I remember years ago, I taught a class through junior achievement at high school, and I used an example of two clients of mine that at the time I knew, and one was, doing really well financially, and the other was doing very poorly. And then I asked the kids, well, which one do you think makes more money? And they sort of figured out that I was kind of, hoodwinking them a little bit. And they said, well, okay, yeah, the one that makes more money is the one that's, behind the eight ball. And they guessed right. But then I said, well, what do you think the income differential was? The one that was doing really well made a little bit over 100,000. The one that was really up against it and upside down made 2.5 million. Okay. And it was my example that it didn't matter how much money you made. It matters how much you kept and how you behaved with it. And it goes to level of financial literacy and a lot of the things that you're talking about. Okay. So, how does that achieving financial literacy, how does it change someone's life, and how does it essentially take money off the table, or you're just not worried about it anymore?
Well, you bring up a tremendous point, and this is one of the things that you got to really learn early. I mean, there's basically four things that happen with a dollar when you earn a dollar. So there's two components to it. One is the earning. There's the revenue side of your life, and that's what I just talked about: wage versus entrepreneur. So you got to teach those two very distinct paths and the benefits of both of them. But then the other side is the expense side, the liability side of the balance sheet. And so you can save, you can invest, you can spend, and you can give money away. Four things. So as you teach kids that there's four faces of a dollar. It's really, really important because there's an element of discipline and there's an element of delayed gratification that you got to teach our kids. You can't spend everything you make. Otherwise, Mike, you're going to end up as the $2.5 million guy that doesn't have enough money because he never learned financial discipline kind of early on. It's like if you went to the chocolate factory, you just can't gorge yourself on chocolate all the time. You end up getting sick. So these are those basic things. I mean, if you do nothing else, I mean, you talk about where do I go, where, how do I learn and all that. This isn't a complicated equation. Like you can save it, you can invest it. What does investing mean? You can give it away and you can spend it. And so if you just instill those four things and create some discipline around that, oh my God, you've done amazing things for your child because they'll understand discipline. They'll understand, if I get $1, I can't spend $1. And some people spend $1.50
Right.
credit. So they spend more than so anyway, all this stuff, Mike. I mean, these are very basic building blocks of getting our kids. We make the mistake of thinking that they can't understand. And they can't understand these concepts. Well, think about this. What if you don't talk to your kid about language because they can't understand English? Well, I'm not going to talk to my kid because they don't understand English. You talk to them as if they understand, right?
Yeah.
So therefore they learn how to speak. So if you talk money language early, you're going to have a 6-year-old that's going to know more than most college educated kids.
That's a fantastic point. And I love that you brought that up because that's true with so many other things. If you teach a kid a musical instrument when they're young, their minds are they're fertile soil and they absorb so much so fast. We always talk about this with kids. They absorb so much so fast. And anything you teach them when you start young, that's a great point. So in your experience, when kids reach adulthood and they have a literacy here, how does that inform the rest of their lives?
They just have more discipline. They have more discipline about what works. When I go and I talk to people and I again, there's two sides of the equation. One is the revenue side, how to build money, how to make money, whether you're wage or entrepreneur or income. And I encourage people as they go out and they look for jobs is what is the incentive system inside the company? Okay. So that's number one. Is there any kind of ownership or stock ownership or any of those kinds of incentive plan? And then second is what happens when you start making more money? You get bonuses and do you just spend it? Do you save it? What happens to your lifestyle? Do you have lifestyle inflation? Are you buying bigger shit? Are you buying bigger cars? Are you buying bigger life? And these are all things that if you establish these disciplines earlier on, you're going to be so much better off later in life when you're presented with the opportunity of more money. Because that's what happens in your 20s and 30s. You escalate, you make more money, there's bonuses. And so what happens to you?
Well, and how do you, what do you say to somebody who's maybe choosing a career path? Maybe they're literate in money and they've done all the right things. They've been taught about it early on, but they're choosing a career path that isn't economically advantaged, like say social work or education or things like that. What do you say to people who choose those paths?
I mean, that's a personal choice. You can be incredibly affluent and disciplined on less. We've seen that, and you can be completely poor on more. So it's really not, it's about choices. We just want to expose our use. It's like you have kids. You're going to have some musical kids. You're going to have some athletic kids. You're going to have some artistic kids. I mean, move into their strength, but expose them into the range of opportunity. And so they can be better equipped to make better informed decision. Maybe they want to be an entrepreneur. Maybe they don't. Maybe they just want to be a wage earner, but at least expose them to what a business owner is and what equity means inside an organization.
In other words, the language of money, it's like teaching kids about their bodies, right? Same thing.
Yeah. And again, and if you don't, it's so hard to teach somebody late.
Right.
I mean, it's just, I mean,
tell me
just
about
ask any parent, like just don't talk to your 17-year-old about something and then try to bring that into the equation. It just, oh my God, they think you're an idiot.
Well, try teaching it to a 50-year-old or somebody a little bit later in life. So the book is 401 Kid. When does the book go live and when can people buy it?
So it launches the 9th, in 9 days, and, super excited. It'll be on my website, walterclarke.com, Clarke with an E.
Okay. And I think we have this crawl thing that doesn't appear to be working now, where we wanted to put this on the crawl, but I don't think it's not working. So my producer went to get coffee, I think. I don't know. Anyway, it's walterclarke.com, Clarke with an E.
Yes.
Okay. And the book is available on Tuesday. Really, really recommend you pick it up, especially if you have young kids. Oh, my Lord, pick up the book. It's a great read. Walter, thanks so much. Again, we will be back next Tuesday with another guest, but this is a great discussion. We've not had this discussion really with anybody since we've been doing these. So really, really appreciate it. Again, the book, once again, is 401 Kid. It's available on walterclarke.com. It'll be available Tuesday. Highly recommend you pick it up. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.